Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Roberts. I am a petitioning candidate for the Board of Education. I stand for a Board of Education quite unlike that which we currently have, quite unlike that which the other candidates are offering you. I stand for a Board of Education that is effective, efficient, affordable, and above all, accountable to you. As we have done with prior shows, I would like to start this evening's discussion with a quick recap of events that have been taking place in Winstead this week, and there's actually quite a lot to talk about this evening. Much of the week has been spent door knocking, walking the community, walking the neighborhoods, and engaging in conversations with you, the residents of our town. The message that you have conveyed to me has been simple and clear. I have listened and I have understood. You want to know where your money is going. You want to know how your money is being spent. More specifically, you want to know that your money is not being misspent. It is not being spent on programs that do not work, programs you do not want. And most importantly of all, it is not being spent on things that are wasteful or duplicative, empty buildings and administrators. Some of you wish to spend more on our schools. Some of you do not. But all of you, almost without exception, want to know where the money is going. You want to see an audit. You want to see what the audit says. You want to know that all is well with the state of our schools. I have heard you. I understand you. There have been a number of articles in the press this week that have been of interest. Firstly, and unfortunately most jarringly, we read this week that the Board of Education would like to pay raises, salary raises, to the administrators. The Board of Education would like to pay salary raises in a year where they are crying poverty. The Board of Education would like to make salary raises for the administrators in a year when they are telling you they will fire teachers. The Board of Education would like to pay salary raises in a year when you, the taxpayers, are wondering whether you will have a job tomorrow, not whether you will get a pay raise tomorrow. I'm not sure whether pay raises in this year of all years is appropriate. I imagine you don't think that pay raises in this year of all years is appropriate. But the Board of Education think that pay raises this year is appropriate. It's easy for them. It's not their money. They're paying for it with your money and by firing teachers. The second news report to catch my attention was that of the Winstead Journal, the first installment of their review of the emails that they have secured pursuant to their FOIA request. These emails do not paint a pretty picture. We will come back to them in more detail later in the show. But suffice it to say, they do not paint a picture of a school board working industriously on your behalf to manage the schools in the best interests of this community. Instead, they paint a picture of a school board largely composed of bickering children, pursuing petty vendettas and personal agendas. But as I say, we'll come back to that. Thirdly, there's the big one, the audit. As I have gone from door to door, many of you have asked me, why is the Board of Ed telling us that the audit is done? Why are they telling us that the audit has exonerated the Board of Ed, that the Board of Ed is smelling of roses? As recently as this week's Board of Selectmen meeting, a member of the public asked the mayor what the status was on the audit. And the mayor put on her democratic smile and she said, the information is in and the process is proceeding. It was therefore somewhat surprising to hear the town manager say merely 10 minutes later that he was in possession of a communication from our auditor, a communication that had been copied to the state of Connecticut, a communication that said that the information in our auditor's possession was incomplete, inaccurate, and wrong. A communication which said that the Board of Education was unable to address the auditor's questions, unable to allay their concerns. The information is inaccurate, incomplete, wrong. Questions go unanswered, concerns unallayed. Ladies and gentlemen, the audit is not complete. The board is not exonerated. The board, if it smells of anything, is smelling of something other than roses. Enough is enough, ladies and gentlemen. There is a finance committee within the Board of Education, a finance committee that is responsible for reviewing all of the financial activities of this board. The buck has to stop somewhere, ladies and gentlemen, and it is with the members of the finance committee of the Board of Education. They need to take responsibility for the egregious failures that they have perpetrated during the conduct of this past audit. They need to resign, ladies and gentlemen, both from the Finance Committee and from the Board of Education. James DeVita needs to understand that membership of the Board of Education Finance Committee does not qualify him for election to the Town Board of Finance. He needs to understand, and you need to tell him, that membership of the Board of Education Finance Committee disqualifies him from running for the town's Board of Finance. The next news article that caused my attention I thought was going to be a good news article. It stated, at least the headline stated, that the Board of Education was going to augment and update their website page. Now, for any of you who have tried to use the Board of Education's website page, you will know that it is a somewhat clumsy and clunky affair. And so anything that would make it better, I thought, would be good news. Imagine my surprise, therefore, to read the article and to learn that the upgrade that was contemplated was the inclusion in the website of the Board of Education's members' photographs. Now, frankly, I'm in favor of anything which bridges the gap of mistrust between this community and the Board of Education. I am certainly in favor of anything which would allow any member of the public to correctly identify in the supermarket a member of the Board of Education, to approach them and to give them a piece of their mind, to vent upon them some righteous indignation. But are photographs really what we need at this point in time? If the Board of Education must spend its focus moving deck chairs on the deck of the Titanic, then perhaps it could also try steering around the iceberg. We need real, substantive, accurate information. Where are the minutes of the board meetings of the Board of Education? There's one set of minutes up there since June of this year, and I am quite sure that the board has been meeting frequently and regularly since June of this year. Where are the minutes of the many subcommittees of the Board of Education? Where are the minutes of that finance committee that has signed off on so many different sets of numbers, all of them wrong? There are no minutes of any subcommittees up on the website. Where are the monthly financials that we have been promised by board after board, by board chair after board chair, by superintendent after superintendent? They've all promised us accurate, timely, real monthly financials. There's a tab that says monthly financials, ladies and gentlemen. It even includes some monthly financials. They relate to October 2010. Nothing for November, nothing for December, or January, or February, or March. Nothing for April, May, June, July, August, or September. Are we to assume, ladies and gentlemen, that the financial affairs of the Board of Education for all of those months are, as Mike Renzullo would so evocatively put it, imaginary? With the imaginary money that they have been spending during that time? Or should we instead assume that the Board of Education is trying to hide something in terms of its spending for the last year? Who knows? But if they're going to augment and update their website, it would be nice to see real substantive information. We need more than photos at this point. The last news article which caught my eye actually is good news. In the Republican American, it was reported that Superintendent Danahy was planning an initiative to get his arms around special education costs. Now, I say this is good news because for anyone associated with the schools, to talk in terms of costs as opposed to talking in terms of spending is a huge step forward. Cynics will argue that successive boards have argued their intent to get their arms around special education for a decade more. But I say, give him the benefit of the doubt. It was, after all, Superintendent Danahy who was man enough to confess that Blaise Salerno has been misleading us all these years when he said that we would spend $7 million or more in a single year on special education, when he said that we spent 20% more than any other community in this state on special education, when he said special education costs were spiraling out of control and were wildly unpredictable. It was Superintendent Danahy who gave us the information to say that we don't. The most we spend is $5.5 million, that is entirely in line with every other community, that those costs are fairly predictable and rising at a modest clip. He was honest then. Let us hope he will continue to be honest, and for that reason, we should give him the benefit of the doubt. Much of the discussion around town these last several weeks, these last month or more, has been on the weighty issues of the budget, the MBR, whether we should close a school, whether we should fire teachers, whether we should have a supplemental tax. Let me be perfectly clear where I stand on these matters. Let there be no doubt where James Roberts stands on these issues. Number one, Had the Board of Education followed through on its own recommendation, its own commitment to complete the consolidation of grades 7th and 8th into Gilbert by closing a school building, our MBR for the current year would be $18.6 million. The same $18.6 million that you, the community, voted to approve in the budget in May. $18.6 million, ladies and gentlemen, and not the $19.9 that the school board is now desperately demanding. Number two, whether the MBR is 18.6 or 19.9 or anything else, we spend more than the NBR. The school board doesn't want to admit this. They do not want to tell you how much they spend, much less what they spend it on. But we can be sure that we spend more. Past audits have proved it. Future audits will also prove it. Number three, the core assumption that underlay the budget that you approved, the closing of a building, was the same core assumption that the Board of Education asked us to craft a budget around. It was the Board of Education who recommended, who committed to close a building. It was their basic assumptions that you voted on when you voted for $18.6 million. And no one can in justice punish the town for believing what the Board of Education told us, for acting in the way that we did, for doing what the Board of Education asked us to do. Fourthly, whosever plan it was the right plan. Closing a building is the right thing to do. We have school capacity at least 3 times greater than our student count. No one but our Board of Education believes it is cheaper to run empty buildings than to close them. The state of Connecticut believes you will save money if you close a building. You and I know we will save money if we close a building. In these times where dollars are scarce, in these times where we are talking about firing teachers, in these times where even the BOE has to limit the pay raises it gives to its administrators to less than 1%, in these times it is imperative that we spend smartly and that we close a building. Fifthly, not closing a building is a cynical and egregious play by the Board of Education to exploit a loophole in the law, to take the dollars that you, the voters, voted, to allocate to road improvements and to investment in our downtown, and instead to waste them, to flush them down the toilets of empty schools. Let me say that once more, ladies and gentlemen. Not closing a building is simply to exploit a loophole in the law, to take the dollars that you want to use on your roads and to flush them down the schoolyard's toilets. Number 6, running the school district as if it were going to receive an additional $1.3 million is both irresponsible and illegal. Every day that this madness continues makes the cuts that will be required to return the school board to an $18.6 million run rate that much more painful. Number 7, even now, after everything that has transpired, not one classroom teacher need be fired. Not one classroom need go up in size. We have empty buildings we can close. We have all sorts of duplication and waste we can eliminate. We have compensation costs of all types, shapes, and forms that we can and must trim. If the Board of Education chooses to eliminate a classroom teacher, if the Board of Education chooses to inflate a classroom size, that is a conscious choice on their part designed exclusively to spite you, to punish you for the budget that you passed in May. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, this is important. The Democrats want to capitulate to the school board. They want you to pay $1.3 million or more to finance that capitulation. A capitulation that is without reservation. They want a supplemental tax to pay off the schools, irrespective of whether we have an audit, irrespective of whether there are any financial controls in place. A vote for the Democrats on row A is a vote for a supplemental tax. A vote, by contrast, for the Republicans on row B and for Lisa Smith on row D is a vote to rein in the school board without a supplemental tax. Let us spend a minute now talking about what we should be talking about education. A quality education is transformative. It is transformative for an individual, it is transformative for the community. A quality education changes a student's life. It opens up a world of opportunity a world of opportunity. It gives them the chance to examine themselves in the context of a wilder world, in the context of society as a whole, to analyze that and to understand that. It gives them the means, the mechanics, the tools to identify and examine a concept in the context of everything that surrounds it, and then to remove it from that context and examine it from completely different and unusual directions. A quality education is a blessing that a student will thank you for every day of the rest of their lives. A quality education, a quality school system is transformative also for a community. A quality school system will attract residents and businesses and investors and employers to this town. A quality school system is the basis of a virtuous circle. But less intangibly, a quality school system, one that the town can rally around, advocate for, and support, results in a community that can come together, that can cross ideological divides, that can cross lines of diversity, that can come together to pool their resources for the betterment of others. That is a very magical thing. That is the type of community we should all aspire to live in. A quality education is one that produces results, not just the ability to read and write and add up, not just one that produces a diploma at the end of the day that makes it a little easier to get a job, although those are all key essential things. A quality education in today's world transcends old, out-of-date textbooks, takes us into the world of cloud computing, of iPads and Kindles and all of the rest of it. A quality education produces well-rounded, mature young adults ready and anxious to seize life by the horns, willing to take risk, wanting to celebrate their successes even as they learn from their failures. A quality education, a quality school system is one that is sustainable, one that plans for the future, one that does not make extravagant promises of future compensation or defer current costs. A quality, high-quality school system is one that is affordable. And it is one that is supported by the community, one that the community is ready to advocate for, ready to rally around for, ready to pay for, not just because it has to, but because it wants to, because it is proud. The flip side of that, ladies and gentlemen, is a disaster, a catastrophe. A school district that does not produce results is a school district that alienates people, that sows the seeds of mistrust, that divides, that creates an underclass. It is a school district that robs our children of their future. A school district that is not sustainable, that allows expenses to inflate, that allows contracts to become bloated, is one that in the final day of reckoning, when the cupboard is bare, will leave people with nothing to eat but those expensive, bloated contracts. A school system which is not supported by the community, which is not supported wholeheartedly by this town, is a school system and a town which consumes its young. Where then does Winstead lie on the spectrum? Are we raising our children up, or are we devouring them? The results are not encouraging. As we have discussed in the past, Winstead students, based on goal CMT scores, underperform the state in 80% of test areas. 80% of test areas, ladies and gentlemen. Not the thing, not the stuff of a successful school system. Our cost profile is equally unencouraging. For those poor results, we spend within the top 25% of all districts statewide. Do we spend smartly? No, ladies and gentlemen, we do not. We spend on administration pay rises. We spend on empty buildings. We waste money flushing it down the toilets of empty schoolhouses. Does the community support this school system? I think it's fair to say the community wants to support the school system. It would dearly love to support the school system. But at this point in time, they don't. They don't trust the school system. And who can blame us, ladies and gentlemen? We have been lied to. We have been misdirected. We have had data hidden from us. Who can blame us for saying enough is enough? The question should not be, are we getting a quality education for all of the money that we spend? The question should be, why are we not getting that quality education? Here, the Winstead Journal has done us all an enormous favor. They have been dogged and tenacious in their quest for the school board emails. Those emails paint an ugly picture of a school board rife with petty feuding, rife with jealousies and personal agendas. We read of the deliberations of the school board and the superintendent over whether to hire the spouse of a sitting select person. You and I know that irrespective of whether the law says that's a good thing or a bad thing, it smells. Even Mike Renzullo understands that personally benefiting from a board on which one serves is rife with all manner of conflict. George Clausen perhaps does not understand that, but that's a different story. And our school board does not seem to understand that. Former Chair Cathy O'Brien understood it. She called it morally corrupt. The school board disagreed, Chris Roy going so far as to term O'Brien's terminology itself unethical and hypocritical. Our school board espouses the unethical and hypocritical. It espouses the moral corruption. It espouses conflict. The pictures illustrate a school board utterly divorced from reality. This one from Doc Dutton. I believe that for many months we have been providing accurate financial information to the Board of Selectmen. Accurate financial information, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we have no audit, because we have so much accurate financial information. Even the school board's closest allies realize they are off the reservation. Hence, Jim DeVita's email recognizing or revealing that Mayor Perez said, and I quote, "Susan and I should step down and not run. She was really critical of the Board of Education," end quote. Even Mayor Perez, ladies and gentlemen, in her forthright moments, says that DeVita and Hofnagel should step down and not run. And for once, I agree with her. The emails paint a school board obsessed with secrecy. This one from Hofnagel. Quote unquote, "Still would rather work behind the scenes than give Marcia and James another opportunity to hammer us." Work behind the scenes. Close the veil of secrecy. Deprive the public of the right to understand the decisions that are made in their name. Deprive the public of the right to comment. Ms. Hofnagel, consider yourself hammered. The emails reveal a school board controlling in their pursuit of personal agendas. From Dutton, "I never said anything about her resigning from the board. I don't have another candidate in my pocket." Another candidate in his pocket. Why is it appropriate for Doc Dutton to believe that every candidate and every issue is in his pocket? It's not. You know it's not. I know it's not. I, for the record, James Roberts, for the record, is not in Doc Dutton's pocket. And that brings up one last issue, a growing paranoia that I might actually join the school board. Again, from Doc Dutton, "I don't want to default and have the selectmen put in JR." From Susan Hofnagel, a comment that anything that makes more likely, quote unquote, the election of, trying to think here of the Harry Potter term, the one that shall not be named, unquote, must be avoided. The one that shall not be named. I am a thick-skinned individual, ladies and gentlemen. I am no shrinking violet. I do not mind being called the personification of evil. But I do object, and you should object, if your school board takes as its only guidebook, its only advice, the fantasy world of J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. This is why we don't have a quality education, ladies and gentlemen. Our school board is obsessed with secrecy, with personal agendas, with paranoia, with petty feuding. They find the idea of transparency, the idea that someone like me might get elected to the board, deeply threatening to their cozy, corrupt world, which they acknowledge is morally corrupt, unethical, and hypocritical. At this point, the members of the school board, Hofnagel, Dutton, Royer, DeVita, Hanacek, and even Vallejo, she has jumped into the fray here, they should be hanging their heads in shame. They should be picking up their pens to write their letters of resignation, picking up their pens to pen a commitment never to run again. I somehow doubt that will take place, which is why I am asking for your support. But you must understand, ladies and gentlemen, that change one candidate at a time, change one election at a time, will be very slow in coming. As an Englishman of a certain age, I always feel a little uncomfortable quoting Ronald Reagan. But I say at this point, people of Winstead, tear down this Board of Education. Tear down this Board of Education. I will doubtless be accused of grandiosity. I recognize that I am no Ronald Reagan. I recognize that you are not citizens of communist Russia. But nevertheless, this Board of Education serves as the prime instrument and most tangible symbol of the wholly illegitimate divisions that have been erected between this community and its schools, between the taxpayers and their government, between our community and all prospect of future advancement, all prospect of progress. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to ask for the resignations of the Board of Education, to insist upon their resignations. In the meantime, we have work to do. We have an audit to finish, a school to close. We have investment in our roads and our downtown to finance. Therefore, I ask you to come out in November and to vote in overwhelming numbers. Vote not for the incumbents on the school board, but for James Roberts on row D. Vote not for the Democrats on row A. The Democrats on row A who will give you a supplemental tax faster than you can say Winstead, a tax whose proceeds they will waste flushing them down the toilets of empty school buildings. Vote instead for the Republicans on row B, for Fracasso, for Albanesius, for Beadle, for Sterling. And vote for Lisa Smith on row D. Vote for these people because you know they make sense, because you know you cannot afford not to. I have said before, ladies and gentlemen, if you want foolishness from your government, elect fools. If you want change, if you want accountability, elect those who are committed to change and who are willing and eager to be held accountable. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Tear down this Board of Education and support James Roberts, petitioning candidate for the board. Thank you.